I am not a formal interviewer. I'm just a mom who got here because my best friend was diagnosed at 34, which you were 34.
Yeah, 34 as well, yeah.
So I came because I started coming to events here and walked in and was like, wow, I have to be a part of this. And so I was volunteering for about a year and a half, and then they ended up hiring me on. So that's why I'm here. I'm not here because I'm good at computer stuff, because I'm really not. I figured out as I go. But because I love being a part of this, and it's
nice, yeah. That's what I want to do too eventually. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's amazing. So I'm excited. Thank you for being willing to get vulnerable, because it's not an easy thing to talk about, but it's an important thing to talk about, because I feel like people need to hear the human part of it.
Right. Yeah. I agree.
So, okay, so I have a couple of kind of basic questions, and I figure you have talked about this a bit before, so you have an idea of what you want to discuss.
Yes.
So Brittany Reyes, correct?
Yeah.
And did I spell it right when I was emailing you? Brittany?
Yeah.
And then Reyes?
Yeah.
Okay, just always want to make sure. I only want you to share what you're comfortable with. I know that there are some things that are certainly more touchy at different points in people's journeys. So if I ask anything that you're not comfortable with, or if there's anything that you're like, yeah, no, just please, by all means, don't feel just like, don't want to talk about that, and not even a big thing. So, but my whole point in doing this, and I've written a couple of other stories, and I'm starting to document the founders' stories as individuals, not just parents of Michelle, but kind of, I want it to be your voice. I want to tell a story and write it up in a way that feels genuine and true to you. So I am going to ask the questions. I will write down. Do not look at my handwriting, because it's horrendous. But I will write it all down in my own little notes, and then I will go through and write it, and then I'll send it to you, and you can note, that's not what I said, that's not what I meant, that's not how I meant it to come across. And then you have total edit freedom, because I want it to be you. I don't want it to be a fluffy piece about this mysterious person, Brittany. I want it to be your words, and I want it to feel genuine. So know that also. I'm not trying to create a fluff piece by any means.
Right, okay.
So do you want to just start talking, or do you want to kind of take me back to when you were diagnosed?
I can do that.
Okay.
So I was just married, like I said, on April 30th, 2023. So I was kind of preparing my body to want to see like how it was far along to get pregnant. And so I went to my OBGYN doctor, and I was like, okay, well, I want to get an ultrasound, because I already knew that my uterine walls was kind of thick. So I was like, is there something we can go about and do something about it? And she's like, okay, well, let's go ahead and get an ultrasound. Once we get that ultrasound, we'll go from there and see what's going on. So the results came back again that my uterine wall was still thick, and so they recommended I do the DNC procedure.
Okay.
And once they did that, that's where they found that there was abnormal cells, and they went ahead and got 2 approvals from 2 doctors, and they're like, yeah, this is cancer. And that was in October 2023.
So between April and October, you were married for that period of time.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, guess what?
You have cancer, yeah.
Wow. So I'm sorry, October
2023. October 2nd to be exact, yeah. That's when I got diagnosed.
Okay.
And I knew that it was bad news when my doctor wanted to see me on a Thursday, and she's like, no, I need to see you on a Monday now. And they called me like literally 10 minutes before, on Friday, before my shift was done, and they're like, they want to see you on Monday. And I was like, okay, well, that's weird. Why would you want to see me earlier than what you had scheduled? And so I remember this gut feeling just like sank down to my stomach, and I was like crying, and I was like, I know it's gonna be bad already. And the doctor also had mentioned to bring my husband with me. So I mean, that didn't make it any better,
That was just
a
punch to the gut.
Exactly. And so I brought my husband in, but I told my mom what my doctor had said, she's like, okay, I want to go too.
Okay.
So I literally had my husband, my mom inside the room, and she's like, I'm sorry, but you have cancer. And so she showed me the before and after pictures of the DNC procedure, and she's like, this is as much as I could clean out without going too deep into like your uterine walls. And she's like, but yeah, both doctors proved that it was cancer.
So they biopsied?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so from there, I went to my oncologist, and they said it was a stage 2, but they couldn't like pinpoint it until they actually went in there and did a full hysterectomy.
Wow, so you had a full hysterectomy.
Yeah. It was gonna be just my uterus, but once he saw that it spread to like my right ovary, he's like, I'd rather be safe than sorry. And so he ended up, I had consent before surgery that I was gonna go through with the full surgery if it was needed.
Let them decide when they were in there.
Yeah, but I was hopeful at first because obviously I have no kids. So I was hopeful that I could at least freeze some eggs and try to have a child. But that was not something that was definitely out of the question for me.
So you were not able to retrieve eggs prior?
No. And they were even telling me that it probably wouldn't be safe, like if I tried doing that. It would be a lot on my body.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, let's just go ahead and go through with that. And it's crazy because it's like I said, it was from 2023, and all these years, like everything happened so quickly. 2024.
So the hysterectomy was when?
It was January 29th, 2024. So it was like one thing after another, one thing after another. And like I told my husband, I was like, what if we just try to have a child, even with the cancer inside of me, and try to have a kid? He's like, no, like I don't want to risk losing you for you trying to have a child. And so that's when we came to agreement where we're like, if we can adopt, if we can foster, then we'll go about that route.
So to clarify, I apologize to cut you off. So prior to the hysterectomy, you were asking about doing, or trying anyway?
Yeah, trying,
And your husband was like, no, I would rather have you healthy and safe.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a hard decision to come to, I imagine.
It is, because we both, were newlywed, we wanted to have a family, and we were both excited about it. So it's like all of a sudden to be like taken away from us, it was just like drastic. And so I was just like, well, let's go through with this. And the day of the hysterectomy, that was really hard for me. Because I was like in the operating table and I was just crying. And the nurse that was with me, she's like, are you okay? And I was like, I couldn't even tell her anything because I was just crying. And she's like, it's okay, just think about it that you're young and you're gonna be okay. And it's like, yeah, but my womanhood's being taken away from me. And so, not just that, but like, you're going into full menopause. And so, I felt like my youth was taken away from me. And when I was a lot younger, a lot of people would tell me, oh, you have very good skin, like you have very good genetics because you look younger than what you really are. And, like I had like very long hair up to my waist. And so to experience that for me was like an identity crisis, because you're going from one person to another very drastically.
And without any say.
Exactly. I had no choice basically. And then from there, after the hysterectomy, it was hard because I needed to depend like on my husband. I needed to depend on my mom to like help me bathe, help me cook meals, because I wasn't able to do a lot of movement, a lot of picking up. Like I couldn't carry like even the flask. They wouldn't allow me to carry anything heavier than a gallon. So I couldn't do all that. And honestly, it was scary when I came out of the operating table because my heart's already kind of slow. So when I came out of there, like the nurse was telling me, Brittany, I need you to breathe because my heart rate was dropping.
Oh wow. So before you went home and you were still in the hospital?
Yeah.
So the recovery in the hospital, how long were you in there?
I was there from 9 in the morning till 9 p.m.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was the
Isn't
same
it crazy
day.
to get you out of there so quickly?
Yeah.
I mean, it probably felt like an eternity, but.
Yeah, because I was unconscious. Like I didn't get out of anesthesia till like 5 or so. But they're like, you can't leave until you have like you go to the restroom by yourself.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So I was like, give me water, give me IV, give me anything you want me to drink so I can like go to the bathroom.
Yeah, I just want to get out of
I
here.
just want to get out of here already, yeah. But like that for me was scary, like to hear like your body react and like be in shock and be in a lot of pain. Like so quickly. It was just, I don't know, I don't want that for anybody, but it was definitely a scary experience for me to experience such a big surgery. And then
And who was at the hospital when?
everybody,
the whole family rallied.
yeah,
Love it.
everybody from my mother's side, obviously they all couldn't be in the lobby, so there was like a park nearby that everybody stayed in there.
Are you
And
serious?
they were all hanging out, yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, like my uncle, my grandma, my cousins were there. And so it was just a lot of them just hanging out, like, hey, how's Brittany doing? But they were all texting my husband, like, how's Brittany doing? And he was telling everybody. And so they were finally, okay, looks like she's already out of surgery. So we're gonna, some of them had to get home to Fresno because they came like from Fresno.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's a drive,
Yeah, that was a drive.
Wow.
And from Long Beach too, so they're like, okay, well, some of us are gonna head home because it's already getting late. So that for me already was a sign of like so much support and love for my family, you know. And then after going with like the recovery phase, I had family come over, send me stuff, send me clothes and stuff like that. Again, showing me that, but it also felt scary for me because it's like you're still kind of like dealing with the healing internally and healing with like what's going on inside of you like after the surgery.
Yeah.
So I had a couple meltdowns and my husband's like, it's okay, I'm here for you. You know, like it's fine, like I am okay with taking care of you. Like you don't have to stress about it. And especially because I was so young and trying to like go through this. And I was like, in my head it was kind of like still surreal that I was going through it.
Yeah.
Even after the surgery.
Do you still feel that sometimes today?
Yeah, because you go back to the circle of friends to like going from one person to a different person, and that's when it kind of like clashes with you that hey, you went through something drastic, and everybody's reflecting it back to you.
Yeah. Oh.
They're like, how are you? Like, oh, you look good. It's like, but I don't feel as good as you think.
Yeah.
You know, on some days because we have good days and we have bad days, and I think being so young with cancer, it's especially endometrial cancer, because people think breast cancer is more popular than endometrial. You feel kind of like marginalized.
Not as important.
Yeah. As breast cancer. And so now I'm also at an age group where it's like everybody's getting married, everybody's having children, having gender reveals, and it's like that's not something I get to do. You know, me or my husband.
Do you find, I don't want to put words in your mouth. So when you're invited to, do people dance around it? Do they still invite you? Do you find that people are hesitant to invite you? Or if they do you go?
Yeah.
And I mean, do you feel, or again, this is from somebody who hasn't experienced this, so do you feel like people dance around you?
I think a little bit, yeah. They do, and so you can kind of sense it. I don't pinpoint it and say, I'm not going to approach you because you're dancing around me.
Right.
But I'm still going to acknowledge you, be friendly with you, and courteous, like, how are you doing? Like, how's your life doing? Because I honestly still want to know, like, how that person's doing, you know?
Yeah.
And at the same time, I'm also, like, acknowledging that it's awkward for people sometimes. It's not always
you verbally acknowledge that to people, or
not acknowledging, but in the back of my head, like
okay.
I acknowledge, like, you know, it's not an easy topic for someone to be sitting in front of me and not trying to feel bad for what I went through or stuff like that. So it's like it's a lot of
you give them
self-awareness, self-awareness of what's going on, the situation, and not be too heavy with it, because then I feel like it's one of those things that if you're not mentally okay or emotionally okay, it's gonna drain you.
Yeah, very good.
To not want to be around people, to not want to be invited to like gender reveals. And I literally went to one yesterday, but I was crying the whole morning of
I bet.
Before. And I told my husband, I was like, it's hard because everybody thinks, like I'm okay now, like I'm healed. But having to be happy for somebody else that I can't be happy right now, it's hard.
Yeah.
Because I'm in a different phase than they are. And so he's like, I know, and it makes me sad to see it this way. And I'm like, I'm sad, but I know that there's other options, that I can still show love to another individual, another little child, in so many different ways. And so I told him I need to take care of myself to be a healthy person for that child. And like I said, I just offer grace to those people and myself when those situations happen where they dance around me. Or I do think some people probably don't intend to invite because they don't want to feel that awkwardness. But at the end of the day, sometimes I feel like maybe it was better that I didn't go. I probably wouldn't have felt comfortable. I probably wouldn't have felt my best going anyways.
Yeah.
And so I think staying true to myself has really been key in the whole situation. Staying true to myself, giving grace to myself, and understanding back to like how disconnected I was at a young age with myself. And to now.
You mean prior?
Prior to cancer diagnosis. I was diagnosed with PCOS at 16.
I apologize, I don't know what that is.
Polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
at 16.
At 16, yeah. And so it's something that a lot of people don't know what it means, what it does, how it impacts girls, and it's having a big hormonal imbalancement. So
interesting. Okay.
It shows different. It's on a spectrum, I believe, because it shows different for different people. For some, they have high insulin, they have excessive hair growth, like in their face, or male baldness, or some of the features is how their body, like they don't get bigger breasts and stuff like that, or they have no hips. So it's like it shows differently for different people.
So it's something from young then.
Yeah.
That's in their hormonal makeup.
Yeah.
It sounds like, okay.
Yeah. And as I've done more research and come to find out that it's not like a genetics, that it's more like a metabolic issue and environmental factors, like I started to connect more pieces of like my own younger brought up phase of like my parents not being there because they had their generational trauma that carried on to me, and my mom was pregnant at 16, so she was already going through a lot of stress in her body that was kind of feeding me. And they've done research where that affects the child's genetics to be able to handle stress.
Wow.
And I was like, that's crazy. And at the age of 12, my parents separated, so that kind of like factored in like a new environment for me of trying to handle stress, because my mom was going through something. She was changing her career to trying to be like a medical assistant. My dad was trying to handle like the separation with my mom and us kids. And I went from having my own house and my own room to sleeping in my grandma's living room in a sofa mattress. Like not having my security, my comfort zone, that put a lot of stress in my body at a very young age. And so you kind of disconnect with, if my parents aren't taking care of me, I can't take care of myself, sort of thing.
Right.
And so I think a lot of that stress kind of like forms that in more like hormonal balancement, to where it causes you to not be able to like have a period. So,
interesting.
So I never had a period.
Really?
Never had a period.
Wow.
And when I was 16, they put me on birth control, which I think is not a good thing to do for someone who's in PCOS, because it only kind of like puts a band-aid on the actual healing. And so
the doctor asked to put you on in order to hopefully
regulate my
Okay.
Yeah. And I was like not aware. My mom wasn't aware either, like what was going on, how to go about fixing PCOS. And so I went through with the birth control, but when I was 17, 18, I felt like I was going crazy, because your hormones are already imbalanced. And with PCOS, you experience more like anxiety, depression. And so when they put me on that, it like 10 times it, and I was hitting depression to where I was suicidal.
Wow.
Yeah, and like I told my mom, like, and I come from a very like conservative religious background.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, just pray about it. We're gonna pray for it. And I was like, that's not what
No,
I
it
need.
needs more than a little prayer.
Yeah, this needs more than that, you know. But I'm so thankful that I went to college and took like psychology classes and helped myself. Really
I was gonna say, it sounds like
develop.
you have a lot of
Yeah.
not only self-reflection, but there's also some external, like you've done some research and you
Yeah.
figured some stuff out for yourself, and that's
Yeah.
admirable.
Thank you. And so that's what I've done. Like my whole experience with this is like vouch for myself and work through it.
Advocate.
Yeah, advocate for myself. Yeah. Even if it's not done like physically, but internally and emotionally, I think it's important. After I went through that period of like darkness,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I don't want to go back there again.
Yeah.
You know, especially with cancer, because it can definitely be an emotional breaker, mental breaker for you.
Yeah.
And that's not what I wanted. And so that's why I feel like a lot, like I'm thankful for what I went through at that young age, at 16, of
Mhm.
dealing with depression. And now being in a different phase as a woman that's married. Because imagine I would have let myself go, how much that would have affected my husband,
Mhm.
you know? And I also live with my mom, so that also would have affected her.
Mhm.
And so that's not what I wanted for anybody. And I felt like as an older sister, I have a lot to kind of pull together or be an example for them.
Mhm.
And my middle sister also has PCOS, and so she's kind of like contacting me, hey, like, should I eat this? Should I do this? Or like, what do you think? Kind of sort of thing. And so I think this whole experience definitely changed that for me, to be more mindful and also talk to them about like, hey, you should be looking out for this when you go to the doctor, or don't take this when the doctor tells you that, like find someone else or find a second opinion.
Mhm.
So it definitely changed my perspective on the healthcare system prior to cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and I'm going more of a holistic route.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
With your treatment?
Yeah. So I've already finished my chemo and my radiation, which were the biggest ones. But now I'm doing more like holistic when it comes to like my dieting, my supplements that I'm taking to help my immune system and stuff like that get back to normal after chemo.
Mhm.
So I'm definitely doing a more holistic approach.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Do you have I mentioned you have somebody guiding you with that, or
Yeah.
is that based on your own research?
Yeah. She's like a holistic doctor that's done like a lot of other clients and stuff like that. So
I love that.
yeah, I've been doing that instead, because at the end the pharmacist industry wants to help you with something but hurt you in another way.
But also keep you
and also
needing
keep
them.
you. Exactly, yeah. And I was like, that's not what I want. I didn't want that. But what really got to me was like the whole being young,
Mhm.
you know, not being able to have anyone there to compare myself to.
Yeah.
That had cancer at that young age. And so it kind of feels like a lonely road that you're kind of like pioneering in a way.
Absolutely.
And I think that, I don't know, it's just kind of one of those things that you are strong because you have to be strong.
Mhm.
You know, it's not because you're strong and everyone tells you, oh, you're so strong, you're like the strongest person I know. No, I'm not the strongest person. I'm just going the best I can with it, like through the process.
Excellent.
Yeah. And I don't know, I got kind of diverse in some of what I was saying. I don't know if I answered your question.
That's all right. That's what this is, just getting it all out, however it comes.
Out, yeah.
And that's why I do this, so that I have a couple of things, if we want to touch on them. Let's see here. What was the most unexpected thing you learned about yourself during all of this?
Unexpected thing. I would say my resilience. Yeah. Because it required a lot, even on my bad days of like chemo, radiation. Continue to tell myself, you only got one more to go. You only got one more to go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and not kind of like be heavy on myself, like through those times where I couldn't get out of bed. Like I was in my bed after chemo at least for like 3 to 4 days.
Oof.
Yeah. I couldn't move because they put you like that white cell builder on your arm that releases after chemo, and that's where you felt the worst. Like the first day out of chemo, I was fine because they put so much filters in my body and like so much medication that I was like okay to go and do whatever I had to do and then come back.
Yeah. And then day 2 and 3.
Day 2 and 3 and 4 were the worst because you're stuck in bed.
Did you have a lot of sickness? And
honestly, I didn't because I was like fighting it, but I also took the nausea pills that they gave me. But I hated those because they make you very constipated.
Oh yeah, that's an unpleasant side effect for sure.
Itself, yeah. And so that was brutal because it's like I also have to be mindful of the fact that I had a hysterectomy, and if I'm constipated, it's not helpful for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
wow.
Yeah, I have to be mindful about that. And then when I went through radiation, that was a little bit worse because the external didn't affect me, the internal one did. That one had me done for like 2 weeks straight. Like I couldn't hold anything in my stomach.
So chemo, how long did you do chemo?
6 cycles.
And over what period of time was that?
It was from March 24 till August 24th.
So 5 months. Okay, and then radiation, you said you had
7 weeks of that. I had 5 weeks of external and 2 weeks of internal. And so that the brachytherapy that they call it, that one was the worst, I want to say.
The internal?
Yeah, the internal one. Because it messes with your internal organs as well, not just the targeted area. Your digestive system becomes very sensitive. And I had to take a lot of probiotics and stuff like that to rebuild my stomach again, the flora in my stomach, as well as chemo messes it up. So that was a pain because I had to go to emergency room to try to get that situated, and they're like, everything looks good, and I was like,
it's not good.
It doesn't feel good. Yeah,
telling
exactly.
you it's not.
Exactly, it doesn't feel good. It feels like I can't hold food in my stomach, you know.
Yeah.
And so it feels like I was dehydrating, and after chemo and radiation, I already had baby veins. So this is what happens to me every time I go get procedures done.
Oh my gosh.
All the time. I have baby veins, and my veins got even smaller.
Wow.
So this brings PTSD every time I go into like get exams and stuff like that, or get put into like a operating table. Like my body starts to shake, and I start to feel like it's all happening all over again. Obviously, I know it's not, and I try to calm my body down, but it's just like a natural reaction now of what happened that day. And so it's like, it's tough. I think that for me has been like the toughest thing so far. Like going back into exams and like getting all that shaky feeling again. Like it's happening all over again.
Where are you at as far as in your remission or in your recovery? Are they putting any terms on it, saying
They haven't got there yet.
You're not there yet?
No. Because I just finished treatment, and so my follow-up is going to be like in March or April. March.
Okay.
And so
how do you feel about that coming?
I feel confident.
Yeah?
Yeah, I feel confident that
that's excellent.
There's nothing there, you know. And I've come a lot of your guys' sessions, like the Reiki sound bath and the transformational breathing with, I think, Christina.
With Mary. Are you?
I did one with Christina.
Oh, okay.
It was a Reiki
session.
I
thought you meant the transformational breath?
I don't know, it was like a Reiki session, but it had a different something in the front that was different. It was like breathing.
Well, we have both, so yeah, there's and that you found that to be nice.
Because she's like, we're saying these affirmations right now because we're saying it because we're not going for another journey of cancer. We're already like proclaiming it, kind of sort of thing, that is not going to come back.
Excellent.
And that for me was like game changer because I was like, you're right, you know, we're not going to put that out there that it's going to come back. You know, I'm doing everything in my power to change that, and like the meditations that I'm doing are helping me to cleanse my body of like stress that I have. And work has been very great to integrate back. I'm like full-time now.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
So they were accommodating when you needed it,
and now to leave. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and like when I got back, my boss was like, "Don't even worry. Like we took care of some of your cases that we had in there, and we touched on them so sure that they all got met.
What do you do now?
So I still do the same thing. I work for the state as a tax technician.
Okay.
And they kind of went through it, and so when I got back, it was like an overwhelming amount of like cases that I had to go through and make sure that they got done. And so now they're like, if you ever need to leave again, or if you have appointments or stuff like that, or if you have to do something, you can just let us know and you're good to go.
That's awesome.
That has been very helpful.
Yeah.
Like with stress and stuff like that, because I don't want to stress my body out anymore.
Yeah, exactly. You have more important things to focus on.
Yeah, that and letting everything go. Like
Letting
everything that
go.
happened when I told you that I was 12, like don't let any of the past trauma that was in my body allow that to heal, allow it to be spoken of, allow it to be seen. And there's like a lot of research that has been found that the stuff we suppress as like if we're a people pleaser, it stays in our body and it causes chronic illness, causes chronic stress. And I was like, there's no way, like I didn't know about this before. And I was like, it related a lot to myself because I always feel like I've had to please others or be like that perfect daughter because you're like the oldest one and you get all these like rules put on top of you because you're like the oldest daughter, and it's like, no, it's
the helper.
I'm like, no, that's not who I want to be.
Good for you.
Yeah, like I don't want to have to like please everybody. I don't want to have to like make everybody feel validated and seen when I need to validate myself and make myself feel seen.
Put yourself as a priority.
And connect better with myself, in that way. And so that's how this journey has helped me with that.
So that you feel like that your cancer journey has helped you claim your ability to say no?
Well, I feel like I was okay with saying no, but I feel like cancer has really taught me to claim, like, protecting that little girl. No one's gonna mess with her anymore. No one's gonna tell her, like, you need to do this or, like, what you need to do for yourself. Like, I'm finding out what I need to do, what works best for me.
Okay.
You know?
And feeling empowered to honor that.
Right. Because no one is gonna vouch for you but you.
How's your husband feel about all of that? He seemed, from what the pieces I'm hearing, he seems very supportive.
Yeah, he's been very supportive in the whole situation. Yeah, like he's always like, well, if you feel like you need to take time off of work, take time off of work. If you feel like you need to not cook dinner tonight, then don't cook dinner tonight. You know, like don't feel obligated to have to do things for me or like to take care of me, like wash clothes or whatever. He's like, no, I can do these things myself. You know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I was like, well, thank God he said that because you know it puts a lot on you.
Well, it's not that you need permission,
right? Yeah,
but to know that he's not over there.
Like, why isn't she doing
Yeah,
that? Yeah, exactly.
I really wish she would just do the laundry.
Right,
just having him verbalize it, I'm sure, is freeing of sorts. So that's all. You're lucky to have him.
Thank you.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I've heard a little bit about how your life perspective has changed and kind of where you want to go with things. I think sounds like you're trying to figure that out.
A little bit, yeah.
As far as future. During this process, you've had to come to terms with a lot of sadness, I imagine, and a lot of changes to the plan, to the life plan. Other than just talking yourself down, is there anything specific that you have leaned on or found yourself doing to help you kind of overcome those huge battles, those big hills that you didn't have a choice in climbing? These are the hills in front of you and you have to face them, right? Is there something that you have found yourself kind of pulling from that you could share with other people? Is it even something you're conscious of? I know that's a lot of questions thrown all in the same.
Yeah, it's definitely a good question, a big one, I would say, because I don't know, I feel like a lot of people may question their faith in this challenging time, you know, because I did. I'm not saying I'm perfect, I'm not saying I'm like 100% like close to God or something like that, but I think these are the times where your faith is kind of like really tested to the point. Just like, or are you gonna allow it to drown you, or you're allowing it to help you? And I think that was something that I took from a lot was my faith. That I'm trusting, even if I don't feel like I have the biggest faith or like the biggest close connection with God, that I'm giving it what I have at the moment of where I'm at in that stage. Like if I was going through my chemo treatments or I was going through radiation, you're at your lowest in that time frame. And so for me, it was really just like letting go, let go. Don't try to control it. Don't try to force anything of like, oh, I have to be good or I have to be bounce back so quickly. It's like, no, let go and let me carry you, kind of sort of thing with God. It's like, there's a beautiful poem that says like, I only see one footprint in the sand. Why, God? And it's like, I'm carrying you through,
Yeah.
and I'm picking you up.
Where were you? Right?
Yeah.
No, I was there. I was actually carrying you.
Yeah, exactly. And so I always put my head back to that. It's like, he's carrying you right now. Right now that you can't do it, right now that you're not able to, he's right there for you. And so that was a big one. And unconsciously, I think I've always had the mentality of not giving up. No matter what the situation is, it's like you always got to put one foot forward, regardless what it is. And so I think that was something that I had to like, I already knew, but I kind of like broke more into it with this journey in my life. It's like, yeah, of
A
like
deeper understanding
of it, right? Yeah,
of what it means. Yeah.
and one more step, one more step. And again, like I said, giving yourself that grace and that love that you're doing your best you can with what you have.
Very good.
And so that's kind of like what got me through that. And also going out in nature. Nature really helped me.
Really? What about nature specifically? Like, what did you find yourself doing or saying?
I don't know if you're familiar with Diamond Valley Lake.
I'm not.
No? Okay. So there's like a man-made lake there that you can go up and you can just see a big old lake, and there's mountains everywhere, open area mountains. And it's like, I'm this small grain in this big universe. You know, it's like, you think what you have is great for you right now, but can you imagine how great the universe is, that it has so much to deal with? It's like, I'm not trying to minimize my pain or anything like that, but it's like God has you in his hands, that he has control over what you're going through, but he also has the ability to help you through it. And so that kind of like allowing me to surrender, allowing me to accept, allowing me to embrace was big.
And so when you were sitting up and looking at that big vast lake and all of the mountains around you,
like meditating in those thoughts.
Okay.
And like I said, either going there or going out for walks in the park around my house, like being out and about. Like I also did sun baths where you actually sit in the sun and like bathe. Like that helped me a lot.
Awesome.
So like I said, a lot of external and internal work has been done through this process, and I'm thankful for it, because I wouldn't be the Brittany that I am now if it wasn't for that. And also for vouching for myself at a very young age, like you said, and becoming self-aware, taking these things, and has really helped me. And so that's how I was able to, I think, overcome this big obstacle. I mean, it's still a journey, because obviously there's still other things that need to get done, but it was definitely one of those helpers.
Very good. What surprised you the most, positive or negative, in how people responded to your diagnosis?
What surprised me the most, that people that didn't know me were reaching out. People that are like saying, hey, we're praying for you, or they were sending flowers, they were sending gifts. And that really shook me, because it's like, people aren't as cold as they seem, you know, but we feed ourselves this idea that nobody cares. We're a very individualistic culture.
Right, yeah.
And to see that, it's like, it's not so individualistic sometimes. We want to make it seem that way and be all about ourselves, and it was like, no, people were giving without expecting anything in return. And I did notice some friendships that I've had for some time kind of like backing away, kind of like keeping a distance, but still saying like, oh hey, I'm like praying for you. But I would expect it probably a little bit more, only because I'm that way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I acknowledge that I can be very like, hey, if you're going through something, let me know, like I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even for my sisters, it was hard going through this journey where they kind of like distance themselves a little bit. But I was like, it wasn't something that I've seen because I'm very like, I wouldn't say naive, but I'm very like one that doesn't look at fault first,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so I'm like, well, that's kind of sad that that's happening, but I'm still gonna be there for them regardless if there's something that happened with them that they had a hard time like overcoming or experiencing with me of going through cancer.
So it sounds like you gave people a lot of grace as well,
Yeah.
and the freedom to do what they were comfortable with, as
Right.
opposed to
Because then you hurt yourself and thinking, well, why weren't they there, or expecting things, you know?
not internalizing their distance. Is that
100%, yeah. Because like I said, I've done some studies and done like read books and stuff like that, and it's like it's not healthy for me
right?
to internalize that, to think like, why aren't people here for me? Why aren't they reaching out? Why aren't they being as supportive as I thought they should be?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, everybody's dealing with something, and because you're going through this right now, it's probably becoming even more heightened, whatever they're going through.
That is such a selfless place to come from, Brittany.
Thank you.
I wish that is a lesson that you could share, and I feel like that's something that I'm going to focus on in this, because I feel like so many people do internalize that and take it as not an attack, but why not take care of me? Not everybody can,
right? Yeah.
And it's overwhelming, and it's scary, and like you said, everybody does have their own stuff. So that is a huge insight for you to be able to have, especially this early in your journey.
Yeah.
So I admire that.
Thank you.
No, that's huge.
Yeah.
Not everybody can have that awareness,
Mm-hmm.
that it's not about you, and it's not meant to be anything other than people are just trying to get through the day.
Yeah, exactly.
Most days.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Yeah.
Is that something you feel like you've come to since dealing with all of this? More so?
100%. Yeah, more so. Yeah.
And that's a huge awareness.
Yeah. Because before I kind of like knew, well, everybody's going through something, but now that I experienced cancer, it's like not everybody can be there for you, even if they tried. You know. So it's like it's been one of those eye-opener thingies that happened to me during cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a pretty fantastic takeaway.
Yeah.
In life, I feel like that's
that helped me. And like I said, random people were reaching out to me and saying, hey, like let's catch up, let's have some lunch, let's, you know, to see how I was doing. And it's like that went more to show me that even if you put negative out there, you know, like you shouldn't, because then it's gonna come back to you.
Yeah.
And if you put positive out there, positive is gonna come back to you. And that's what I was trying to do. You know, even though I was going through this, it's like put positive out there so it comes back to you, and it comes back tenfold. You know.
That is very true.
So that has definitely been a stepping stone for me in this situation, and even in life, like you said, carrying it out through life, it has helped a lot.
Yeah.
To deal with any kind of hard situation, to like just put positive out there, but also be positive within, to be able to share what you have to others, because it all starts with you.
It does. It does, and it exudes from you, and
Right.
I feel like people feel that whether you're verbalizing it or not. So that's huge also, because I feel like people who walk around, have you watched the movie Inside Out?
Yeah, that's a good
They
movie.
walk around with the little dark, you know,
Yeah.
people
Exactly.
sense that from you. And
Yeah.
Let's see here. If you were talking to another 34-year-old woman who was facing this diagnosis,
Yeah.
who was going to the doctor maybe because they had a thickening lining and were getting married and were wanting to,
Yeah.
what would you tell them?
Oh, that's a good question too. I would tell them, I would first ask them like, how do you feel about it? You know, because not everybody feels the same about it. And I've noticed that as I've come across people with cancer, like not everybody feels as like, what's the word I'm not competent, but very like, yeah, let's overcome this. You know, there's some people that are like, I don't know, like I'm scared, like overwhelmed with the situation because it's a big situation. So it's like, how do you feel about it right now? How do you want to go about, you know, and start from there. Like if they are willing to be open to like holistic approach, probably it's like, hey, I want to offer you this perspective. Maybe you want to consider doing this, but being there as a friend is what I would want. You know, like to let them know that they're not alone in this situation. That there's other perspectives than what the doctor tells you if you are considering going that way. And let's say it's a stage one, for example, then yeah, go through with the surgery if you want to, because it's gonna stop it. You don't have to worry about anything else from there. Just take care of yourself, you know. So, like I said, it definitely depends on how that person feels at the moment.
So, if somebody was facing a similar circumstance to what you have gone through, how would you encourage them to advocate for themselves?
Definitely do the research.
Do the research.
Yeah. Do the research, because I think that has been the biggest help for myself. Is like do the research, because then you find out, it makes you feel more at ease with yourself of like knowing what's out there and what the doctors are telling you. You know, and so I definitely think advocating for herself would be my biggest like advice. Like don't let doctors tell you this and that, but like advocate for yourself. And if they're not asking you to do like exams of like a PET scan or a CT scan, say why not? Like you are advocating for yourself to do these things because you want to know that you're okay.
Very good. 5 years from now, where do you see yourself?
I see myself having a family. Yeah. I see myself having a family, having my own home, and being able to potentially be retired.
Retired?
Yes.
Wow, that's a huge goal.
Yeah. Because I told my husband, I was like, I don't know how much life I have here, you know, and neither do you. And it's like, I don't want to live at a desk job, like from 9 to 5 and say, this was what I did with what I got.
Yeah.
You know, like I had cancer and I want other people to know that, hey, this is how you can become better. You know, like after going through cancer, it's like, it changed my perspective of going back to work. I don't even want to be at work right now, but obviously I have to make a living. But it's like, I'm taking those steps to where I can have myself retired. Because I want to be able to, like I said, either nurture a child and be there for them to help them develop, or if it doesn't end up working for us, then just doing other things, you know, that I can give my time back to others or travel, but be of use for others is what my goal is, you know, at that point. And I think with having resources of being retired, I would be able to help others more with my time. So that's my goal in 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Very good. Let's see here. It sounds like you've had a very positive, well-educated, thought out situation. Not everybody does that.
Right, yeah.
There's a lot of people who kind of just go in scared and say, okay, well, fix me.
Yeah.
Is there a point where you have a conscious memory of making that choice? Like, okay, this is how we're gonna handle this. Or do you think that that's just kind of always been in you from that 12-year-old kid
Right.
who had to make those, you know, hard choices and things?
That's a really good question. I think it was one of those things that was kind of like in me since I was little, but I had to pick it apart with this journey of cancer, because I really had to sit with myself and acknowledge that it was a hard situation, you know. And so doing that inner child work allowed me to see that I needed to be there for me. You know, I needed to stand up and not let this drain me or like take me to a dark like place and stuff like that. So I think that was the biggest thing that helped me, was doing that inner work, that inner child work, and saying like, this is not gonna allow me to surrender to it, but instead I'm gonna surrender to God and allow myself to work through it. one day at a time.
One day at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Would you say the majority of that came after the diagnosis, or was that something you kind of worked for, not knowing that that was coming?
Maybe I'm not understanding what you mean.
Okay. So the inner child work you
Yeah.
talk about, that you needed to be there for yourself, you knew that you needed to advocate for yourself,
Oh, okay.
and the work, again, it sounds like you've done a lot of work and a lot of maybe reading or I don't know, therapy, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is that all stuff that you did prior to getting married and then being diagnosed and having to?
I was working on it. Yeah.
You were actively working on.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, very good.
Like I said, from 12 to 18, like I felt weird. Like I didn't feel like I was mentally like stable, but I knew that I was grounded, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like in my heart I knew that I was grounded, but in my head I knew that there was things that needed to get worked on. And so that's when I started like learning more of psychology. Then after psychology I started getting therapy, and then slowly started doing that work. That was before marriage, before diagnosis.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And so that kind of like started working towards marriage. I asked my husband if we should do marriage counseling.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did marriage counseling, and then I've done like, again, listening to good podcasts, listening to good people that have gone through the work, done the work themselves, has taught me a lot of insight about myself as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just actively started going to therapy right now as well.
Very good.
And you guys also offer counseling here, so I did that too.
You have through us? Excellent. Yeah. Okay.
So that's why I said, I was like, I want to give back to Michelle's Place because you guys helped me a lot through my journey.
Love that.
A lot, yeah.
That's awesome. How did you find Michelle's Place?
One of my friends that works for City of Hope,
mm-hmm.
she recommended external resources for people with cancer, and she brought you guys up, and I was like, oh, well, it's close by. It's here in Temecula because I live in Hemet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I came. And I saw you guys have like a calendar of events and stuff like that, and I was like, well, that sounds cool. And
very
so,
cool.
Yeah, I came.
Awesome. Did you ever? So you've used our Reiki and breathworks and sound bath and the therapy services. That is fantastic. Yeah. I love that. I love that. That's why we do it. Fantastic. So, gosh, I feel like you are so well rounded.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there anything else you want to tell me, or that surprised you about this journey, or that challenges that you weren't anticipating? That, I mean, is there?
Challenges, I would say the big identity crisis. I didn't expect it, but it was, I think, one of those given things that should have happened once I knew that like my hair was gonna fall out, that I wasn't gonna look the same anymore. Yeah, that everything was gonna change. And it's like, I think that has been my biggest challenge, is accepting this new me, this new identity. But it's also a version of myself. Like, I haven't been lost because I still have that strength, resilience since I was younger to now. Now it's just like expanded more, that resilience, that strength, and that mindset of keep going, and a growth mindset. I think that's key for anything, growth mindset. Whether that be in your workplace, your relationships, your love life, your illnesses that you're going through, like, you gotta have a growth mindset.
And what does that mean to you?
Growth mindset means that you have grit to acknowledge what's wrong, and kind of like accountability to see what the problem is, but also what can you do about it? How can you resolve it? How can you make moves to move forward? Versus allowing yourself to seem to like, well, this isn't working for me, or well, I don't have these resources, or I'm not capable of right now because I'm sick. It's like, you're sick right now, but it's only for a couple of days, and then you're gonna be okay. You're gonna be able to do things again, which was the best thing coming off of chemo. That once I was done with chemo, I was like, okay, let's go to San Diego. Let's go have a nice date for ourselves with me and my husband to keep our relationship strong as well. Even in the midst of going through cancer, it's hard on your relationship.
Yeah.
And so I think advocating in our marriage for that is also important, because I was newlywed, that was the biggest thing that made our relationship stronger, is keeping communication open, understanding where are we, like check-ins, you know, like, hey, how are you feeling, you know, like, are you feeling overwhelmed? And it probably wasn't done every day or every weekend, but just acknowledging that your partner's being there for you, appreciating them, and telling them, hey, I see you for what you're doing, and stuff like that was a big game changer in our relationship.
Huge. I'm sure he appreciated that.
Yeah, he really did. And so, like I said, he's been very supportive through it all, and I think it's one of those things that you probably wouldn't be able to do it by yourself if you didn't have somebody with you, you know. And he was a big part of it too, to not be able to do it alone.
Because no one should face cancer alone.
Right. Yeah.
And that is what we live by.
Yeah.
However that may be. So.
Right.
You are blessed to have him.
Yeah.
And he you, obviously. Well, is there anything else you want to share?
Let's see. I would say I just hope that this story really changes someone's perspective of, like, young people have it too, you know, and that cancer is becoming more dominant because of our lifestyle. The things that we're eating, the things that we are consuming, whether it be social media or whatever you listen to on social media, is affecting our mental health, our emotional health. And I want people to be more mindful about, like, what they're consuming on social media, what they're eating, like getting more knowledge on, like, what's on our foods and stuff like that, so that they too won't be surprised with cancer any day soon, because it's becoming higher.
It is.
Yeah, so I think that.
And people are getting younger.
Yeah, 100%. And of any cancer.
Yeah.
It's not just endometrial cancer. But, like, a lot of the things that are in our foods, our makeup, our things that we use to shower and stuff like that are affecting our reproductive system. So I think if anyone's really trying to be pregnant anytime soon, it's like, really be mindful of those things. Like, hey, what are you doing with your body?
Yeah.
Like, how are you taking care of yourself? Like, if you're trying to, the most of all, be well internally, like in your emotional.
Be well internally.
Yeah. Before you try to bring another child into this world. Because if you're
for the child's sake as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love that. Okay.
You're putting a seed out into the world, but if your ground isn't good, your seed isn't going to come out well either.
That is the truth. Man, I wish more people had that perspective. So we will share it and get it out there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you for inviting me.
No,